Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about even more rumors having to do with Nintendo Switch 2. They just keep coming. And this time, this batch of rumors are suggesting that the Switch 2 could be rivaling the PlayStation 4 Pro in terms of overall raw power, somewhere in that territory, and there will also be some pretty crazy insane games to come alongside of it. So that is the plan for today. But before going forward here, let me take this moment to ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell, and if you're unsure, watch through this video and then decide. So all of this info is being shared by forward backward on family boards here, and here their post reads. A known insider posted a long message regarding Switch 2 in a Chinese Switch forum. I'm going to only translate the key points instead of the whole 9 yards. Please note that the poster made it very clear that this is only a compilation of Switch 2 rumors that they heard, meaning that they can't vouch for their veracity. And by the way, they intentionally have hidden where they got this info from, but if you check the bottom of the post here, they say, mods, please DM me if you'd like to verify the source. So nothing's been done in terms of taking this down, so it seems that people are taking this serious enough to believe that they are rumors coming from the place that they are claiming. But going through the bullets here, major devs have access to Devkit for close to 2 years, and any devs slightly more than 1. Devkit is only a tablet, the Joy-Con rails are sealed, the poster thinks that it is an early version. Joy-Cons are not included, devs use Switch 1 Joy-Cons for testing. This suggests Joy-Con backwards compatibility, which we've already suspected that Joy-Cons would still be compatible with Switch 2, you will be able to sync them, however, from what we understand of Switch 2, it's going to be using a new pair of Joy-Cons that will connect magnetically, and the mechanism that will be attaching these new Joy-Cons to the Switch 2 tablet will be so different that you won't be able to attach the Switch 1 Joy-Cons. You will only be able to connect the Joy-Cons wirelessly. That is what most of us believe at this point in time. However, there is that Joy-Con charging stand where some people suspect that by connecting that to the new Switch 2 dock, you will be able to slide your Joy-Cons into that stand, and that will allow you to sync the Joy-Cons to the Switch 2 tablet without having to do it wirelessly. They think that the major devs probably received Switch 2 Joy-Cons. I mean, just reading through all this Devkit stuff right here, if any of this is true, it's because it's all early on stuff. So yeah, I would assume that bigger major devs that are meant to have games ready at launch or at least earlier on would more likely have more up-to-date dev kits of the Switch 2, which would likely also include the actual Switch 2 Joy-Cons. But I guess one thing to note here is that if they are at least using Switch 1 Joy-Cons early on, not only might it suggest Joy-Con backwards compatibility, but that also there wouldn't be too many significant differences between the Switch 1 and Switch 2 Joy-Cons. I still think there might be some, but it might not be something that will change for most third-party games. Moving on, although the Switch 2 dev kit supports analog triggers, devs don't believe that it would actually be used. This is because Switch 1 dev kits already support it for GameCube controllers, but that was never used either. And I would love to jump on the hopium copium train here and believe that somehow maybe this might be hinting at analog triggers for Switch 2. But the fact of the matter is, we've seen all these different accessory leaks where we've seen a pretty good look at how the Switch 2 Joy-Cons will appear. And those triggers, ZL and ZR, don't look like they're analog. We don't really see any significant gaps between the end of the shoulder buttons and where they would press into, which likely means that they are not analog. They will not have varying levels of input. It will simply be a single input digital, as it has been over the last several generations. Which sucks, but also this might imply that GameCube controllers will still be compatible with the Nintendo Switch 2, probably the exact same way they're compatible with Switch 1. You use that little GameCube adapter to connect to the dock via USB, and there you go, or you just use some third-party controllers that are made to look and feel like GameCube controllers. This bullet's interesting. The touchscreen seems more sensitive than before. I don't know how much of a game changer this would be. I didn't really use the touchscreen much outside of just looking at it when playing my games in handheld mode, but for the games that take advantage of it, a slightly more sensitive touchscreen, I guess, could be useful. I just think that this might be more a product of, hey, they're using a newer screen because it's a newer console, and touchscreen technology will continue to improve. So this might end up making a subtle difference for some games that take advantage of it, but for the most part, I think this is pretty much going to be a negligible improvement for most fans. Now here's something that's kind of a big deal, I would say. If true, of course. According to some indie devs, the system workload when running their games is slightly worse than the PS4 Pro Devkit. They also admitted that they didn't do enough optimization. The poster emphasized that these indie devs don't know or care much about the hardware specs, such as the process node. The above was their unscientific observation. So this is more so a rough estimation of the Switch 2 power based off what we're hearing from this rumor here. Around PS4 Pro, slightly worse. But here's something that I think is worth taking into consideration here. When speculating about the Switch 2 power, from everything we've heard over the last year or so, where I've personally been ballparking it based off my speculation, has been Xbox Series S. And what's interesting here, when we talk strictly about teraflops, which do not tell the whole picture, but when we're talking about teraflops, the Series S can push 4, while the PS4 Pro also pushes 4, or more specifically, 4.2. So from that very simple perspective, the Series S is technically slightly worse than the PS4 Pro, perhaps somewhat like what's being described with this rumor here. But because the Xbox Series S is more modern hardware, there's a variety of things it can take advantage of, especially when you start to optimize for it, as these devs in this rumor admittedly have not done, that might allow the console to outperform PS4 Pro. And so the Switch 2, yes, it is a handheld device, so we have to take that into account. Maybe the Switch 2 can be as powerful in docked mode, but when in handheld mode, it will likely be a bit worse. But when taking into account all the modern technology, this console would be years newer than the PS4 Pro, and also taking advantage of things like DLSS that will allow the console to punch a bit higher than its weight. I think estimating something in this range is actually pretty good news. When just looking at things from the Nintendo perspective, this is a significant jump here. We are still talking about a full generational leap because the Switch is dramatically less powerful than the PlayStation 4, never mind the PlayStation 4 Pro. So if raw power wise the Switch 2 is around that level, but then when you take into account modern advancements in technology, I think we're going to be in for some very nice visuals and performance on Switch 2 in comparison to Switch 1. It's going to feel like a nice generational leap, and from everything we're hearing, we should be seeing some pretty strong third-party support. Moving on, some of the indie titles made with the Switch 2 Devkit have already been released for Switch 1. Now, this doesn't really seem like that big of a deal, and I recognize that what I'm about to suggest right now is definitely just a theory, right? It's not a theory that we should believe with a lot of confidence, but I am coming back to color button theory here, because if we have seen some Switch 1 games have the color button, and we wonder why they use colored buttons when most Switch games throughout pretty much the entire Switch era didn't use colored buttons as part of the UI, maybe it's because some Switch 2 dev kits have been out there already, and while some of these games ended up on Switch 1, maybe there's also a Switch 2 version that's been worked on, and that's why we've seen some examples of the color button UI. It's just a theory, I'm putting it out there, reminding people that it's a possibility, but based off everything we've seen from the recent leaks, there isn't any sort of strong indication that it's going to be the case, but fingers crossed, somehow, some way it happens. I just think it would look cool. The eShop submission page for Switch 2 is the same one as Switch 1. And here it says, this suggests the same eShop for both. Now, I think this would be good news to just have things translate over, but also, we want to see some major updates to the eShop, but maybe there's a big update planned for both Switch 1 and Switch 2 around the same time, and so we still see that improvement to the eShop once Switch 2 comes around. But I think it should also be noted that while the submission page may be the same based off this rumor, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to have the exact same eShop as Switch 1. There could still be some differences. There are some outsourced assets that look like cart with a driver's seat and a platform for another person to stand on. They speculate that this is for a new Mario Kart with one person driving and one person attacking. the poster warned that it could be for a different game, such as a new Sonic Racing. So this is one of those cases where I so hope this part of the rumor is true. I desperately want a new Mario Kart to come out very early on for Switch 2. I really want to believe that's what this is getting at here. We have seen some different Switch 2 accessory leaks that do show the new Joy-Cons using a wheel accessory. Why are these wheel accessories already prepared? Perhaps because there's just going to be some games, maybe like a new Sonic Racing, made available early on, and it doesn't have to be for Mario Kart, but it definitely has us thinking about Mario Kart, and that's definitely going to be the big pusher here. Now, even if Mario Kart doesn't come out within the first month or two of Switch 2, I'm sure it's not too far off into the distance. I'm sure Nintendo's getting it ready, but I just want this game as soon as possible. And I would like to point out that a few weeks ago, I did make a video talking about the ultimate Mario Kart game on Nintendo Switch 2, and I did theorize that we might see the return of Double Dash, or rather a Double Dash mechanic, 2 characters on 1 cart at a time, as being suggested by this rumor here. So if it happens, that would be awesome, because I think that would offer way more options to play Mario Kart, more multiplayer options, more cooperative play options. And Double Dash was an awesome game on Nintendo GameCube. I think bringing back this mechanic, even if it's just an optional mechanic, would definitely do a lot to make this next Mario Kart feel a lot more fresh. Continuing here, someone overheard that for a new Mario 2D game, there's an attempt to recreate a scene from the Mario movie, in which one player is in the foreground and another, local or remote, in the background to fight through a stage together. I remember this scene in the Mario movie. I remember seeing Mario and Donkey Kong fighting in a side-scrolling like format during the movie. It was a very cool scene, and I almost feel like I've heard this rumor before. So if anyone knows where this rumor might have come from initially, let me know in the comments below, because this sounds very familiar. The only issue I have with this rumor is I feel like it would be weird to be hearing about the next 2D Mario game already. Mario Wonder just came out, like, what, 14 months ago at this point? So I think it's too soon to be talking about the next one, especially when we should be more focused on a 3D Mario to launch the Switch 2 in its first year. That said, just because we're hearing a rumor about it now from different developers, that doesn't mean that it's going to come out immediately. It could just be something we heard about early on. Maybe it's an idea that they're sort of tinkering with or thinking about with the next one, and it's more of a follow-up of Mario Wonder. And really, maybe this has a lot more to do with just making sure there is a sequence of big Mario games for the 40th anniversary of Mario, which if they follow the same pattern as they did back in 2020, they'll start to celebrate that later this year. And I guess the more I think on it, depending on how big they want to go with this 40th anniversary, they could theoretically get a variety of different big Mario games ready. A new 3D Mario game, perhaps a new Luigi's Mansion, which I think timing-wise it kind of works out. The next Mario Kart, but maybe depending on where they put 3D Mario, about 6 months later or so, they might be able to position a new 2D Mario as well. Or maybe since we're talking about the launch of a new generation, they're not even talking about a new Mario game kind of like Mario Wonder in terms of the 2D style, but rather maybe more something like Mario Maker, which, you know, Mario Maker having one per generation I don't think is the worst idea. And looking at what they did with Mario Wonder versus what they did with Mario Maker, I think both series can coexist. This next idea is very interesting here. There are some outsourced assets that seem to be from Monolith Soft's Project Cross Zone, with Nintendo characters. It is speculated to be a Smash-like concept. So this is extremely interesting. We know Sakurai is hard at work at an idea right now, and looking at what's been accomplished with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, it is a bit hard to see how they might greatly improve upon Smash Ultimate without just basically adding a little bit more, which wouldn't be greatly improving upon it. It would just be a nice little iterative approach there. Which is what I want, by the way. I want them to simply basically just enhance Smash Ultimate and give us more content. But maybe they can do that while also taking the Smash series in a different direction. Maybe they don't even call it Smash Brothers because they want to try something new, but maybe they make a Smash Bros. Nintendo-style Project Cross Zone that could be its own thing, but has a bit of that Smash appeal. That could be something very cool and potentially a ginormous new series or a new side series of Smash Brothers. as long as we still get a dramatic amount of new Smash content throughout the Switch 2 generation, be it through subsequent Fighters Pass releases, maybe some updates to the single-player modes, or just a new game that brings all the content from Smash Ultimate and adds on top of it. Continuing on here, there's another interesting game. The dev team of ARMS seems to be working on a custom Robo sequel. So this is kind of funny, because the dev team of ARMS is also the dev team of Mario Kart. So had they been done with Mario Kart and now they're working on a custom Robo sequel? Well, I think that's doable, because what has this team been working on all this time? So if they are already working on a custom Robo sequel, I think that would then imply that the next generation of Mario Kart has been done for some time, or is pretty much done, and there's just a smaller team making sure it's totally polished and ready to go, and perhaps prepping DLC waves to come out soon after its release. From that perspective, this is exciting. But how about the perspective of just a new custom Robo game? Custom Robo was a Nintendo game back on the Nintendo GameCube. It's pretty much as the name describes. You customize robots and you fight them in these arenas, and it was a super cool game back in the day. I loved playing it. And to see the dev team of ARMS to be working on this, just kind of thinking about what they did with ARMS, I could see them coming at Custom Robo with a modern approach, where maybe it even almost functions a bit like a direct gameplay sequel to ARMS, where there is a lot of reach and there is this third-person action element to it, but instead of it being fighters with springy long arms, it's different robots that you customize and build and fly around these arenas with different abilities that can shoot and attack and melees and all sorts of things like that. Man, just thinking about it now, this might be one of the most hyped games ever if this is actually true. So I'm all aboard this idea if true. It seems like something out of left field, but maybe that's going to be a little bit more of a common thing this time around for Switch 2. Moving on, we just see a bullet of Assassin's Creed. I mean, that feels like a pretty easy thing to predict. Assassin's Creed should probably come to Switch 2. No Virtual Fighter 6 for Switch 2. That's unfortunate if true. Someone spotted a game that looks like Persona 5 Royal or Persona 5 Strikers. I mean, that's also one of those things that seems like something that should be available on Switch 2. There was a Capcom internal demo of Resident Evil 7 for Switch 1, but it was eventually cancelled. The poster speculated or hinted that the Resident Evil series should come to Switch 2. That also seems like a given. And that's everything from this post. But what I would like to sort of speak on here is just this idea of us getting a new custom Robo, or getting a Smash-like concept, but building off the Project Cross Zone gameplay with Nintendo characters, or a new 2D Mario game employing some elements from the movie, or a new Mario Kart having a Double Dash mode. These are some weird, cool ideas, and it just reminds me of what we talked about a day ago with another pair of rumors that we might be seeing the return of Star Fox Adventures with an actual new title, or a brand new F-Zero. These are things that maybe a lot of people would not predict. A new custom Robo, a new Star Fox Adventures, a new F-Zero. But if this is all true, I think it's actually amazing. Nintendo bringing back a lot of their older IP. As a longtime Nintendo fan, I think with the next generation, there's a lot of opportunity to go back to a lot of older IP and give these different game series a revival for the modern generation, and if they come out early on for Switch 2, they could find a new audience and a new level of success and becoming other recurring series moving forward, and then all of a sudden Nintendo will have a whole bunch of other games to fall back to. I mean, looking at the Switch era, there's definitely a clear dozen or so Nintendo series that we for sure expect to come out frequently. But what if we can add another handful to the mix where we can sort of come to expect new entries for these series every 3 to 6 years? That will only be a good thing, and as time progresses, Nintendo's going to continue to expand, and they're going to need to because development is only getting harder, so they're going to have to find different ways to keep the flow of content coming. So if they have different game series being made by different developers, that's one way to do it. But what do you make of all these different rumors? Is there something in particular that stands out to you that you find most exciting or most believable? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.